Welcome to the Necessary Entrepreneur Hot Takes.
Hot takes.
You can call them hot takes, quick takes. You can give whatever length answer you want to.
Okay.
When I give you some words or I give you a statement.
Okay.
If you want to go for a 5-minute rant that you're known for, you could do that.
Ooh.
Or you can give us one
a hot
word.
take or an underhanded take.
All right, so we've had some local food here in Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky.
Okay.
Skyline Chili.
Delicious.
The Getta and Grippo's potato chip pizza last night from Birkus Brewery.
Mind blowing.
Cincinnati.
Fun.
Texas.
The best.
Mortgage interest rates.
Irrelevant.
Why?
Because they change. Interest rates are going to go up and down. They have historically. People focus so much on the interest rate that they forget that you're buying an asset that is going to appreciate over time. You can even look statistically after the crash, whenever values, worst case, lost 15, 16% on average, rebounded in less than a year or two in almost every market. Now, there were some isolated exceptions to that, but you're talking about the true outliers. By and large, the average person who's buying real estate is going to buy an asset that will continue to appreciate. What the debt is on that is going to go up and down. I don't like the term marry the house, date the rate, but I do agree with the concept. Right now, when interest rates are higher, there's fewer people in the market, which creates more opportunities for you to find a good deal or the right deal. And if you wait until interest rates go back down, you're going to miss out on the opportunity. And realistically, house prices are going to continue to go up. You don't know what interest rates are going to do. So buy the house, you own it, you can always refinance it later.
Arkansas Razorbacks.
Disappointing. I'm a huge Razorback fan. I always will be. It has been a tough few decades to be an Arkansas Razorback fan.
Mortgage loan officers.
By and large, loan officers are lazy. They've made a lot of money the last couple of years, and we've forgotten what it takes to actually be an advisor in this career.
Realtors.
I think realtors aren't as important as a lot of them act like they are, but the ones that add value are irreplaceable, are crucial in building a real estate portfolio and making the right decisions on houses and markets. Good realtors who add the right kind of value, who are true real estate advisors, are imperative in making decisions about real estate. But the far majority aren't near as important as they want to act like they are.
The American dream.
More than just home ownership.
Wealth.
Relative.
To what?
What's you hold value. I think the definition of wealth, by the world's definition, is financially related. But people that I call wealthy have not just financial success, but relationship success and success in their health, and they have wealth in their life that transcends just monetary.
Success.
It's a driver, but I think it's relative. What is success? I think we need to define it for ourselves and stop worrying about what other people think is successful. There's lots of instances, and it ties into failure because, right, success, the opposite is supposed to be failure. And I don't agree with that. I disagree with that because there's ventures and projects that I've taken on that have completely and utterly failed in the original intent of the execution, but in my mind were wildly successful because of the intangibles of what we've learned and taken from it.
Attitude.
Everything. Attitude's the only thing that matters. We can only control our attitude and our actions.
Mindset.
Mindset is both a driver of attitude and a byproduct of it. But without the right mindset, actions are in vain because they're going to be short-lived.
A guitar.
Happiness. Guitar's gotten me through some of the more challenging times in my life. It's just an escape.
Who's your favorite musician or band?
Of all time?
Of all time. Is there one?
No.
Can we just pick one of your favorite then?
Yeah. So
And can you explain why? We'll just go there.
I'm a big fan of guitarists. So some of the old classic rock of, Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin and David Gilmour and Pink Floyd and Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix. Fans of all those, fan of that genre. I like a lot of kinds of music. I grew up on country music. So I'm a big Garth Brooks fan, right? Because he had some attitude in the old country and western. I have appreciation for the amount of knowledge it takes to be a classical musician. I also have appreciation for the creativity and art of rap and hip hop and lyricists and things of that, ballads even, the story writing that they do. I'm appreciative of music for what it is. I play guitar, so I lean toward that. But I'm not a fan of pop music. They've got these radio stations have these machines that they can put a song through and within a certain percentile know whether it's going to be hit or not because it's aesthetically pleasing. I can't remember what book I heard that in, but I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff because that's, I guess, what we're supposed to kind of like. But
okay, give us top 3 books. And if you miss one or two, that's okay. It means you're going to give us 3 really good ones, just that come into your mind that were influential for you, that you think could relate to the world to help people in their career, with their mindset, in success, perspective. So 3 really good books.
Yeah, the first one, I'm going to try to go with ones that aren't quite ones people would think about.
Okay.
There's a lot of great ones that I could spit out.
I think that'll help us more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one is going to be How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Bettger. Frank Bettger was a personal friend of Dale Carnegie's. Dale Carnegie obviously wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is one I would put on the list, but that's a little more well known. And he said, I want you to write a book on selling. And it's one of the most powerful books for people that want to scale up sales. So How to Win Friends and Influence People is an off tangent of that. Another one that may not necessarily be tied into it is The Shoe Dog, Phil Knight.
Founder of Nike.
Founder of Nike, because I think people will be surprised at how Nike turned into Nike truly. And what he figured out more so than most other, quote, brands is how to humanize it. And obviously they did it through endorsements. But some of the tactics, like I didn't realize he actually set out selling Adidas and Asics and other running shoes before creating and founding Nike. It's just a really, really cool story of, if you want a good business memoir, that's one that I think is super powerful.
A third book.
I've got so many running through my head, but I know that I'm forgetting one.
So as you come up with this one, I think that all the books I've read, I think the most relevant to me are always the most recent one I've read, right? Because I can't go back, and you probably are finding it here, but
yeah.
I've pulled different things from all the significant books, but I have one, and I'll share one of mine.
Please.
While you talk, it's The Compound Effect. You shared it in the podcast that we had today. We did a book study around it, and Darren Hardy, correct?
Yeah.
He had a worksheet, and we did a book study as a company, and I had The Compound Effect sitting on a nightstand. And my significant other told me one time, she flipped it over, and she told me one time, she's like, why are you reading that? And I said, why do you ask? Is it one that, she's like, well, is it one of those books you read half of? And I said, well, I don't know, right? Because sometimes I read a half of a book, I get a lot, and I move on. It's not a great attribute, characteristic, but sometimes it happens. And I said, no. And she said, why are you reading? I said, I don't know, I'm reading a book, it's interesting. She's like, you're already doing all those things. She read the front of it. And I said, well, that's awesome. That's a great compliment. But what I also said was, let me see what else I can learn.
Yeah.
And I did a second read. It impacted me differently than the first one. So maybe that's what even this third book, what these great books can do. These great books, if you read them a second or third time, you can probably have more than one unlock from the first read.
Yeah, so, a couple byproduct. 7 Habits, right? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey. What's urgent and important versus what's urgent and important. That's an important one. Start with Why, Simon Sinek. But his a follow-up to that is actually one of the ones on the list that I would say for sure read is called The Infinite Game. And The Infinite Game is really talking about business. People that are playing a finite game are playing in terms of winners and losers. And when someone declares themselves the best, it's because they've created a metric where they're the best. I could say I'm the most handsome guy in this room wearing a suit coat because I'm the only one that has a suit coat on. So metrics change, and that's the sign of someone who's not playing the infinite game. And he uses the example of Apple. And at the time that Apple had the PC, IBM was still doing business mainframes. And when they decided, IBM, to enter the personal computing space, they saw Apple as a competitor, and Apple took out a full-page ad, and it was either the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, and said, we want to welcome international business machines to the personal computing space and achieving the goal of putting this computing power in everyone's home or something like that. At the bottom, they put welcome to the cause. And the Infinite Game talks about a just cause because Apple wasn't concerned about IBM as a competitor. They had a vision and a cause that they were pursuing. And when was the last time anyone bought a computer that was an IBM, number one? And you look at the same thing of BlackBerry. BlackBerry dominated the phone space. They had security that was unmatched. They had the keyboard, everything we liked about a BlackBerry. And when Apple came out with the iPhone, instead of seeing Apple as someone helping move the smartphone cause ahead, what they start doing touchscreens that didn't work and creating apps. And they saw Apple as a competitor, and was the last time anyone had a BlackBerry. So the infinite game is important because of so much disruption of what's being changed. It's important that we have that. So Infinite Game is one that I would definitely say people need to read.
So I'm going to frame this differently, not a one versus the other, but I'm just going to take it and say the GOAT in your mind is Michael Jordan.
Absolutely, no question.
Okay, Michael Jordan.
Yes. Michael Jordan, disciplined but creative. He was disciplined he had the work ethic, yes, and he disciplined his mind, but he got creative with how to keep himself on that track. I don't think he gets enough credit for how creative he was in keeping that drive inside of him. That can't have been easy for that many years, that many times a week to just go out there and leave it all there. Like, it's just crazy to me.
Phil Treadwell.
On his way.
To what?
Lots of things. I've just recently, I turned 40 less than a year ago.
Welcome to the club.
And I feel like I turned a corner in the clarity in coming into my own. And not because I turned 40, but because when you pass a milestone, you think differently. So it wasn't the age or the maturity or the miles on the car. It was just a point in time that created the ability for me to look through and analyze and make some decisions. And I got a lot of clarity in turning 40 this year about what I wanted to do, what I wanted to accomplish, the path that I want to go down, and we're on our way.
So I don't want to use this, a lot of people ask this a lot, but I don't want to ask it improperly, but about if you have a hero. And as you think about it, that's a tough question at times, because you're like, I could have a lot of heroes. But do you have a hero?
Not in terms of someone that I would call a hero. Mm-hmm. I have mentors and coaches and people that I look up to. And I'm going to answer this question a little bit different than I think maybe you came into it as. I think it's difficult for a lot of men specifically, but people in general, to submit themselves to another man or another person for that matter. And I think for us to grow, for us to break beyond where we're at, we need to understand that it's okay for us to take the armor off, submit ourselves to the authority of a greater power, another human being, different people, and that's okay. That's actually a good thing to do. Because especially ambitious people that are hard drivers so often want to make the decision, want to be in the control seat, want to look at it from that perspective. But if you have to submit yourself, if you have to take that persona off and go into it of, I'm truly going to humble myself, which the pure definition is make myself lower than. I'm going to humble myself to another person because they may have something that I can learn. They may have some feedback that I need to hear, whether I want to or think I do or not, I think is a healthy exercise. I think it keeps us grounded. And those people that allow me to do that and challenge me, you included, in the hard way, those are people that I would call heroes. And it's not a large group of people, but it is a group of people in a sense of there's different people that come at it from different perspectives that I think I use to try to make me well-rounded, to really cover all of the weaknesses that I need to overcome.
Phil Treadwell? Shoot, man, we don't see those. The statement, the necessary entrepreneur.
Yeah.
When you first heard that we named the podcast and this idea of a brand and marketing, it came from my heart. It naturally flowed out, but when you said, man, I like that. What does that mean to you when you hear it, when Phil Treadwell hears the necessary entrepreneur?
I think the necessary entrepreneur for me is about pursuing something because it needs to be pursued and should be done versus the frame of we've glorified entrepreneurship to where, 30 years ago, being an entrepreneur meant you didn't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You looked down upon.
And now all of a sudden it's about bottles and babes and jets and cars and what do they call them? Exotics now,
Yeah.
or foreigns.
Oh,
they call them foreigns.
Yeah.
Right. Like there was a hip hop artist that was being interviewed and kept calling. I was like, what the heck is foreigns? Like I really didn't I didn't know the term, and I realized, oh, okay, you're talking like Lambos and Ferrari. You're talking about foreigns. Mm-hmm. And that's what entrepreneurship has turned into. And in part because of we've elevated and sensationalized the Grant Cardones and the Gary V's and the stuff. But I think that there needs to be some context that sometimes, like in your case, from what you've shared with me, you didn't want to have to go build your own company. You didn't want to have to go be and do all of the things it takes to be an entrepreneur. And that for me is a very fascinating concept versus someone that says, I don't like my boss and I don't want to have to work the hours that they say that I am supposed to work. Therefore, I'm going to go be an entrepreneur. And they have no idea what they're getting themselves into.
Purpose.
Purpose-driven is the way that I would frame purpose. And for me, a purpose is a why, which comes from your past. And tying back into the infinite game, a cause is something that's bigger than you, that you can't do alone, that you can invite other people along with. Multiple people can pursue a cause, but have different past experiences and whys that are driving them to want to pursue that cause.
Your podcast.
Greatest ever.
Of course
no,
it
not
is.
done yet. Not okay. Sorry.
That can be your answer. The Mortgage Marketing Expert Podcast. That's the question.
Evolving, a place where people can get value from people they want to know value from, and has been the most important and impactful decision I've ever made in my professional life. Nearly every single professional relationship and a lot of personal relationships I have to this day came from someone I met or introduced me to, or an event, something that was directly or indirectly related to the podcast.
So we like to have a little bit of fun. So we had some fun when you came to Cincinnati last night. Took you around to some breweries. But we played a game. Cornhole.
Worst game in Cincinnati. It was too easy to beat you over and over and over.
That's the grace that you were asking from me, right?
Right.
So I needed your grace, Vice, instead of mine to you.
Next question, pass.
There's no pass. So on a watch, a Breitling watch.
The perceived value is for anyone in their right mind, including myself, to spend that much money for something that tells time when I'm probably still going to look at my phone, represents a certain goal that's been achieved. So the value that that watch brings me is the hard work that it took to get to whatever goal I set before I buy a watch like that.
So what's it say about me that I don't wear a watch?
That you're late everywhere you go. I have no idea. Not a clue.
Of all the highly successful people you've talked to, because you don't talk to many people now with your podcast that aren't successful in their area, in their field with it. Are there common characteristics, traits, mindsets, approaches? Are there some common ones that really stick out to you?
Oh, sure.
Can you share some of those with us?
One is mindset and attitude. Even when things aren't going well, they're looking forward, they're thinking positively, they're overcoming, right? The second thing is they're consistent. They're consistent and persistent over time. That's how they've created success. And the third characteristic is they're not afraid to fail. Why? Because they failed over and over and over and realize, holy cow, that's actually the path to success. I don't care if we're talking to a local realtor who had some success on social media in building his or her business, or we're talking to, some of the biggest names in real estate and marketing or sales or whatever. They all have those three things in common of failure's part of how I get there, so therefore I'm going to stay consistent, and because I'm doing those things, I'm going to keep a positive mental attitude and mindset and continue to move this whole thing forward.
First class or economy?
First class.
Why?
Because there's inherent value for me.
Because you're a big guy.
I both height and width don't fit well in economy seats. And two, especially the places that I fly, I'm preparing for an event or creating content from an event. You get on the plane first and you're able to sit there for 30 or 40 minutes on a laptop or a phone and get stuff accomplished and get off the plane first to get to where you need to go, versus they start boarding a plane 40, 45 minutes beforehand because it takes a half hour to board the freaking plane. Well, if you're in economy and you're in boarding groups 5, 6, 7, 8, you stand there and you can't really do anything productive while you're just standing there trying to get through lines. So again, call it justification, call it whatever. I've found a reason to justify the value and cost of flying first class.
So 2 more questions.
Okay.
Good versus great.
Fractions of a percent. Most people need to focus on done over good. Like, done is better than good. And I go to the book by Jim Collins, Good to Great. The difference between good and great is fractions of a percent. And we often strive so hard to become great that we don't even get the done part.
Time.
The most important resource we have. It's the only thing that we can't manufacture more of or get back.
So if there's any questions you want to ask, he's like, that's bullshit, but we control it.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke, but Diet Coke.
It's not an answer.
Coke. But I don't drink either one of them. Diet Coke.
Beach or lake?
Not on the sand. I would prefer to look at the ocean, but not on the sand. So if I have to go on the sand, I'll go to the lake.
Facebook or Instagram?
Screw social media. No.
There's no pass.
No, Instagram. It's more valuable now.
Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram.
Facebook or LinkedIn?
LinkedIn.
Instagram or YouTube?
I'm all about value and where we need to be. YouTube.
Skiing or snowboarding?
Skiing.
Cruise or all-inclusive?
All inclusive. I get motion sickness.
Like, this is too easy.
I'm the guy you see walking around with the little things behind my ears and the bands on and everything. I get motion sickness really bad.
Would you rather have your pilot's license or like a helicopter license, be able to fly a helicopter?
I think a helicopter is way more difficult. I would assume that most helicopter pilots know how to fly planes, because when you really dig in to flying a plane, the physics around it, once you understand it, it's pretty simple. You just need to know at what speed, based upon the weight and pounds of fuel that I can rotate on. I need to know the minimums to land. If you put me up and I was in a massive emergency situation in a plane, I think I could probably land one.
Yeah.
Get me on the headset, but a helicopter seems like it is very difficult and complicated. So helicopter, because I like challenges.
Yeah. I think that's the thing is more practical. Like, I understand, like, depending on where you're at, just I'd love to have a helicopter, especially in like a bigger metropolitan area, like Dallas, for example. Yeah. I think being able to like have a helicopter and hop from place to place would be pretty cool.
I think they're a little more scary. Helicopters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like a balance to it. You can't just put that sucker on autopilot. Maybe you can. I don't know.
I was going to take went to an NCAA basketball game. University of Kentucky Wildcats and Northern Kentucky University. Northern had just gone to Division I. It was in Indianapolis, and I have some business owners that own a helicopter here in Cincinnati. And me and the people going to the game were supposed to be flown up there via the helicopter. And it was March. And there's certain temperatures at certain heights and elevations that it's not safe for the helicopter to fly. So I've never been on a helicopter, never have. But the pilot said, it's up to you if we're going to fly or not. It's borderline. And I went, if the pilot is asking me that, we ain't going. Right?
Yeah,
even though I wanted to.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, let's take this flight. But we decided not to.
It's probably a good call.
Yeah, we'll see.
Probably a good call.
Maybe I was a little too scared. I don't know.
What's your goal in the Necessary Entrepreneur podcast?
I want to help people find their path. What I have found is there are so many people that want more in life. Might not just be money. It might not just be a promotion or a greater position. They want more. And the more that I talk to people and I'm around them, there's a lack of belief in themselves. And that lack of belief leads to a lack of action. And I want to talk to them about, are these things that you want in your life necessary enough? I touched on a little bit what you said, but is it necessary for whatever your purpose, whatever your mindset, is it necessary that you achieve that? Is it necessary that you go down this path? Because if it is, you're probably not going to quit.
Yeah.
If you can answer that question that it's necessary, it's a good place for us to start and move forward. And entrepreneur, because I think it's the hot topic these days, there's so many people that think they want to be one. Well, it better be necessary. There better be some big purpose behind this thing that you want to do from an entrepreneurial perspective, because most likely it's going to be the most difficult thing on many fronts that you're ever going to do.
What's the biggest blind spot for anyone in the mortgage and real estate industry right now?
I think a blind spot is I think it's always been there. I don't think it's just right now. If it's not about other people, man, you're going to lose. I don't see obstacles that I'm worried about overcoming or leaping over or powering through or going around. If you really build a business, real estate happens to be mine, mortgagers. If you build a business around solving problems for other people, you touched on earlier today, and you do it in a way that really benefits the best interest of that client, of that consumer, I mean, you have to call it a business, man. It's changing lives. So the blind spot is, and what it's been for so long in this industry, is salespeople thinking it's about them and their pocketbook.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the blind spot. And if that's one of the main motivations and the kind of the purpose and what you're feeding intrinsically, if that's the issue, or if that's really what you're driving, when challenges arise in the marketplace that are coming right now, you're not going to know how to unlock them. You're not going to know how to solve these problems, because these problems are not about you. These problems are about helping other people solve these issues they have in their life. I think that's a blind spot.
I couldn't agree more. I think that we've underestimated the ability for people to see through the perceived value in things.
Is that the blind spot? That's what you think?
Yes. I think that real estate and mortgage perceive or try to create the perceived value of their profession, and consumers have seen through it.
Yeah, because we're seeing how it serves us so much, right?
Right.
And I'm just around people so much in the conferences I go to. It's almost as if agents and loan officers are going to conferences to learn how it serves them better.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't believe that's the fundamental principle. If we really buy in as a realtor, if we buy into this idea that when we first obtained our real estate license, we learned about these fiduciary responsibilities to consumers. That's like the fundamental thing that the states try to impress upon us.
Yeah.
That, hey, this thing isn't about you. It's about these people that you're going to serve. You're a licensed person now. And I think the moment that a lot of agents pass that exam, unfortunately, they lose track of that. I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm not saying that they're going out here with bad intentions, that they don't care about other individuals. But I think so many people are trying to feed their pocketbook through that next commission.
Yeah.
And I'm all about changing your life and finding financial independence, but you're going to do that in a big way if you help other people accomplish, their goals, their dreams, their hopes, and unlock some things for them. So somehow, some way, you got to make it about other people and changing their lives and not about yourself.
Couldn't agree more. What's the biggest disruptor that's coming in real estate right now?
Agents providing top level of service that other people aren't willing to.
Because they're too busy building their team,
Yeah.
in quotes.
Yeah. Build a team. Build an awesome team. But it better be about your team members, not about you.
That's right.
Build a great company. Better be about your agents and about your customers, not about you. Yeah. I think service is the disruptor. How long have we been hearing that tech's coming? How long have we been hearing, like, they're coming, all the money's coming for us, Wall Street's coming, hedge funds are coming?
You know what? Whenever that type of disruption lost all credibility for me was when I found out what ERA stood for and how it was created. Mm-hmm. Electronic Realtor Association, or whatever the heck the A stands for. It was built on a fax machine and the ability to fax a sales contract from one office to the other to get it signed. And then people are like, that's going to destroy what we do. And then it was websites and cell phones and internet and apps and Zillow, like all the different things. And it's the Amazon coming into the mortgage business or real estate business is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And they've been talking about it for years, not as much anymore. And I met a guy, had him on my podcast. He wrote an article for Forbes, and he was the dissent opinion of like why Amazon will never get in the mortgage and real estate business. If you look at the things that they've added to their portfolio, from Whole Foods to different things, their entire business is built upon a consumer review. And you know as well as I do, no matter how well the professionals in a transaction do their job and perform, there's transactions that fall apart and customers that are upset because that's just the nature of the industry. And Amazon cannot build a business from a mortgage perspective of, man, I'm leaving a review. I got declined. I provided everything I needed to, and there was something we just didn't think about, and I got declined. But man, I'm happy with Amazon Mortgage. No, they will be a data-driven entity that will sell to ancillary services performing in mortgage and real estate. But we need to stop comparing mortgage and real estate to travel. Of look what happened with websites, with Expedia, or even financial services whenever the E-Trades and the Ameritrades come along. The biggest difference in those is not every person travels, not every person invests. A huge majority of the people own homes, and even the ones that don't own homes rent, and landlords have to buy those homes for them to rent. Real estate is not only the largest asset class, it's still the most necessary of all these other industries that they try to point to of how we're going to commoditize mortgage, commoditize real estate through these technology platforms. And that's a long way of me saying I 1,000% agree. It's about service, because service in and of itself is value. What I hold valuable from the type of watch that I wear versus the type of shoes or mattress, it's not about price, it's about value. And in this, when the price has nothing to do with the service provided. Mortgage rates and house prices aren't controlled by the individual companies. It's all about how do you facilitate that or create true value, not perceived value, for that person that's walking through there.